Execution is a very, very difficult thing because execution embodies a number of different philosophies, skills, strategies, tactics, team members, methodologies, practices, projects. I mean, it embodies a lot. And so today I'm going to focus on the highest form of execution. And I'll tell you that I've been inspired by witnessing some great teams in my career. You hear about the story of how Apple was able to change their operating system. They got a new processor. They rewrote their entire operating system. They came out with a brand new operating system inside of like a year. And Bill Gates was shocked because his operating system was taking several years to get done. You see people execute when they build a structure flawlessly. And then you see the lack of execution when, government gets involved and it takes years to complete potholes in the road or something of that nature. So many of you can see the juxtaposition between great execution and poor execution. In general, if you want to see poor execution, just look at the government, and that's the perfect example of horrendous, slow, and poor execution. If you want to see great execution, look at entrepreneurs. Look at Elon Musk. Look at Steve Jobs. Look at Jeff Bezos. Look at Oprah Winfrey. Look at these entrepreneurs that are bringing massive projects together. You can also find great examples in churches and movements. And I've gone and visited different movements. I went and visited Isha, Sadhguru's movement, to witness how his team executes. I visited Tony Robbins and watched his team. Dan Gilbert, the founder of Quicken, and watched his team. And Tony Hsieh of Zappos, and watched his team and just observed, tried to see what was it about their teams that made it really work. And the ones that I have found that execute at the highest level of efficiency and productivity are the ones that execute as though it is their calling. These are teams that are so focused on the mission that they give their all to their work, every part of them. In order for you to give your all to something, you have to know all that you have. And so I'm going to talk to you today about a variety of different things that we need to work through to execute at the calling level. And I want you to imagine having a team that sees your business, your mission, as their calling and executes accordingly. It's literally magic. I'm so blessed to work with people on our team that I'm inspired by. I'm watching people work 14, 16 hours a day, and they're doing it because they love it, not because I have to force them to work or I have to use fear or intimidation or any negative tactics. In fact, I'm telling my team to take time off more than I'm asking them to work. Now, not every team member is activated at the highest level of calling, but many team members are, and all of the team members will get there, or eventually we'll have to get new team members that want to play the game of entrepreneurship, the game of business at the calling level. Not at the job level, not at the career level, but at the calling level. If it's a calling, it becomes part of you. The work that you do is meaningful. You create meaning in the mundane. You look at everything as an opportunity for growth, for learning. Every challenge you embrace, you see it as your calling. Everything that comes your way has happened for a reason. And this work is not just for you to do it. It's doing you. It is growing you when it's your calling. So you're receiving more from it than you're giving to it when it's a calling. So I'm going to give you some frameworks and some tools. They're going to help you expand your vessel around your work, around your calling. And the first thing that you need, and go ahead and take notes. It's important to write these things down because it etches it into your soul when you write it down. Number one is we need a philosophy around work-life harmony that is expansive. See, if you have a philosophy that has trapped you, then you are going to be cornered into a limited form of expansion. Now, if you have questions, go ahead and write them down, and at the end, we're going to answer them because I'm going to go quickly over these, and many of you should be asking, how do I do that? What the heck does that mean? Is that even possible? Give me a reference of somebody who does that. I doubt this is a reality that I can have. Good on paper, Ryan. Show me a practice that works with this. Like, I challenge you to challenge me so that way you can totally embody what I'm about to teach you. And I preface this with, we are actually implementing this right now as we speak. So everything I'm teaching you, I'm actually practicing, and I'm seeing the results of in miraculous ways in our business. So one, we need a philosophy around work-life harmony that is expansive, meaning I get to do this work, I don't have to do this work. Meaning I have the opportunity to grow my freedom as my work grows. A philosophy around responsibility where the more responsibilities that I take on, the stronger I get in character and competency. So bring the responsibilities, as opposed to a philosophy that sees responsibilities as a burden or as a heaviness. I see responsibility as a duty, as an honor, as a rite of passage. And by responsibility, I mean team members, vendors, investors, customers, right? That's responsibility. And the more responsibility that I take on, the more that I have to grow in my leadership. But I have to maintain a work-life harmony so that way I don't get completely drained and burned out. You also need an architecture for your business, that as the responsibility grows, so does your freedom. And by architecture, I mean a management structure. If everybody directly reports to you, if everybody needs you for decisions, if nobody can make any decisions without you, if people don't work unless you're in the room with them, if people take off of work or pretend that they're working when you're not at the office, then you have a bad architecture. You need to align your family in the mission. I'm talking children, spouses, friends. They need to be aligned in the mission. We need to have a conversation with our loved ones and say, this is my calling. I need your help and support in that calling. Of course, we need to see our business and our job within it as a calling. And I say that because I'm a CEO. That is my job. With that job becomes certain responsibilities and expectations. That's the job. My business, AlterCall, is my calling. This is my life calling. It's called AlterCall for a reason. It has the word call in it. It should be simple to understand that AlterCall is my calling. And so as my calling grows, so do I. I grow in character. I grow in competency. My business is the greatest personal growth school or university that I could ever go to. My business is a better education than Harvard and MIT combined. In fact, there is nothing that a Harvard or MIT professor or Stanford professor can tell you about business that your business can't tell you, because they talk in theory. Business is learned in practice. Number 5, you need to be clear on your roles and your responsibilities and have an organized organization. Anyone ever make the correlation between organization and organized? But a lot of you have organizations that are not organized. And so I'm not the most organized human being on the planet, but I value it. So I hire great team members that are very organized, that crave structure, that crave organization. And I let them organize because I know that I need this. Because I'm an entrepreneur, I got a lot of ideas and I want to do this and do that. Without having highly organized people involved in my life, I will not be successful. And so we need to make sure that our organization is organized. Number 6, we need to have boundaries around work. I'm going to share with you an expression that I learned from King David in the Bible. And it was said that he was a warrior by day and a mystic by night. And so I look at it as 24 hours. 12 hours I'm going to dedicate to my calling, and 12 hours I'm going to dedicate toward my recharging, renewal, spirituality, friends, fun, and so forth. Now by 12 hours, I'm not necessarily at work 12 hours every single day, but I am getting prepared for work and getting my energy ready for work. I'm doing my contemplation, then I'm working, and it's about 12 hours. Now, you can build up stamina to where you can go 12 or 14 or 16, and there's many times where I am working 16 hours. I like to just think to myself, from sunrise to sundown, I'm working. And then after the sun goes down, I'm having fun and doing the mystical stuff. Number 7, and this is going to radically revolutionize the personal growth industry. I'm the first to say this. My ego's brushing it off right now. Throw your time management books out the window. The whole Covey principles and planners around time management, throw them away. You need to put your energy first. If you have powerful, enthusiastic, excited, genuine, curious, innovative energy, you don't need as much time, and the time flies. Now, you do have to have a philosophy around time, so I'm not saying throw it out completely, but time comes second. Most people organize all their time and then forget about their energy practices, and then they're drained and burned out, and they're stressed out, and they don't get things done, and they have terrible morale because they didn't put their energy first. And by putting your energy first, we need to put our health first, the food that we eat, working out, time for ourselves, self-loved. Energy is first, time is second. Number 8, and you're not gonna like this, but we need to pray, study, meditate, and be inspired every day without exception. Now, every one of you knows about prayer and study and meditation. Many people say to me, I can't do it. I don't have the time. You don't have the time not to, in my opinion, because you're trying to grow your brain. You're trying to grow your faith. You're trying to grow your intelligence and your intellect. And so these are important components to you to be able to accelerate your growth, because the faster that you grow, the faster that your organization grows. As you grow, your team grows. If you stop growing, your team stops growing. If you stop growing, your organization stops growing. There have been times in my life where I backburnered that. I'll study later. I'll do that meditation thing on the weekends. I'll pray, every once in a while. And I can tell you, or I'll work out next week. I can tell you that those are the times that my energy gets fatigued, I fall out of balance, I fall out of harmony, and then my work begins to become a burden as opposed to a calling. And I said every day without exception, that is Monday through Sunday, even when you're tired. And in fact, I'll tell you, when you're tired and you don't feel like it is when you need to do it the most. Number 9, we need to aim high in hiring. If the person that you're hiring makes you feel insecure because they have more intelligence than you, they have more experience than you, they're sharper than you, they're faster than you, they're quicker than you, hire them. You want people better than you. If you're playing basketball, do you want to be on a basketball team with a bunch of people that are worse than you? Or do you want to be on a basketball team with a bunch of people that are better than you? I would prefer to be on the winning basketball team of a bunch of people that are better than me than on a basketball team with a bunch of people that are terrible. Same goes for running an organization. Number 10, you need to constantly seek to replace yourself by hiring above you, below you, and splitting roles. There's many principles to support this that you can go back and review later. But one of the principles that I've organized and scaled every business I've ever been a part of with is this principle that you cannot be promoted if you can't be replaced. So if I want to be promoted to the CEO position of a billion-dollar company, I'm going to have to replace this guy right here 100 times over. That means I'm going to have to, find 100 new jobs for me to do. But if I'm clinging to the job that I'm doing right now, I'm never going to get the replacement and the promotion necessary. We need to demand quality and reject work that is not great. I heard a story about Kissinger, and when people would bring him a report, his team would bring a multi-page report, he'd take it in, put it on his desk, and he'd write to them and say, I think you can do better. He actually never read the reports. He would just inspire them to constantly do better. And you know what they would do? They would go back, rewrite it, and then present him a copy that was to the standard that he was seeking. He was always demanding quality work. We need to create meaning in the mundane. Try to expand the meaning of everything. The way the invoices are sent is very meaningful, because that's the experience that the customers are going to have with you. The way that your team greets the customers is very meaningful. Now, you can look at those things as mundane tasks. Go say hi to the customers. But as a leader, our job is to teach our team how meaningful that is and how important that is and how that is not a small task. That is a very big task. This next one is one that I have spent a lot of time on, and that is we need to check our ego and ask for help. Help. I don't know what I'm doing. Help. I have no idea what the priorities are. Help. I'm stuck. Help. I don't feel good. Help, I don't know what's going on right now. Ask for help. Help, I need new investors. I need a project manager. Help, you got to ask for help. Every time I get to a new level of strength and conviction and power, I immediately go do ego work. Every time I'm like, I crushed that, I then go stop and say, okay, let's go do some ego work. Let's check the ego, remind ourselves of who we work for, submit to our Creator, commit to obeying the Creator. Remind yourself that you are not doing the creating at all, that you are simply a vessel that the Creator gets to work through. It is not you doing the creating. It's not you doing the writing. It's not you. It is a higher source coming through you, which leads to number 14, and that is we need to have a servant heart. When you model service, service is one of the highest forms of execution. And so when you model service, somebody calls, it's in need, you help them out. Somebody's going through a tough time, you jump on the phone with them. You're there to serve. And when you model service is when other people will start to model that as well. And your team will start to model that. Service is the energy that we want to utilize to execute at the calling level. And as Mother Teresa said, serve until it hurts. 15, we need to submit to the Creator's will and know that all power comes from above. The more the world thinks we're powerful, the more we have to submit that our power comes from another source. The ego wants to believe that it's you, that you're the one that did all this, that all these miracles and serendipitous events and synchronicities that have happened all happened because of you. That's what the ego wants to believe. It happened through you. It happened for you, but it did not happen because of you. Number 16, we need to take on the role and identity of a spiritual entrepreneur. A spiritual entrepreneur is a spiritual leader. An entrepreneur is a leader. And if you add the word spiritual into it, you are now officially a spiritual leader. Have you taken on that identity? I am a spiritual entrepreneur. I'm a spiritual leader. Imagine if every entrepreneur saw themselves as a spiritual leader. Imagine what the world would look like. You'd have 500 million more spiritual leaders on the planet. It would be the greatest force of change to hit humanity in thousands of years. And that's the mission that we're working on. 17, we need to treat our children as individuals and know what motivates them and demoralizes them. Now, as a spiritual leader, I'm a spiritual father. Some of you are spiritual mothers. And you have, in effect, people that have come to you because they're seeking that feminine or masculine energy that you bring. And many times, these people need a parental figure in their life, a fatherly or motherly figure in their life. And in fact, you are helping reparent them in the role of spiritual entrepreneur. And they need you to think that way. But like any good parent, you can't treat every child exactly the same. One child, you say, I don't think you could do that. They'll prove you wrong. Another child, you say that, they'll shrink up, go into a cave, and not want to work at all. So you have to know each team member as though they were your own child and work with them and connect with them. Find out what motivates them. Find out what their needs are. Find out what it takes to inspire them to be their very best, their highest selves. And work with each and every single one of them in a very unique and specified way. Don't try to make them all work your way or the highway, as the old saying goes. Try to adapt your style to meet them where they are at, get them motivated, get them productive, and get them to see their jobs as callings too. 18, and you're not gonna like this one. This is probably the one that you guys are gonna all log off on. You need to study all 138 principles in the 50 Free Principles course and the 88 Enlightened Entrepreneurs Principles course and complete TAP. All of these principles and programs have been designed to activate you in your calling. They have activated me in my calling, and they've activated a number of others in their calling. There's a reason why these words have been given to us to give to you. And it's not just because we wanted to put out a bunch of content. It's because each principle has a meaning to it. And it might be meaningful to you now. It might be meaningful to you later. It might be meaningful to your team. It might be meaningful to someone you know in your family. But there's a reason why we need to study these principles. And so many of you, I know you join the advocate program, you jump into Tuesday night, you skip the TAP meetings, you don't go through the principles, you don't go through the content, and yet you want to be activated at your highest level of calling. And I'm here to tell you, like I said, every single day study. If you study one principle a day, if you go through TAP, if you go back and watch the Advocate archive, you will get activated in your calling. 19, we need to be brave and take risks. In order to do that, we need to overcome our fear. In order to do that, we need to realize that faith conquers fear. Number 20, if you didn't quit on me on the last one, you'll quit on me on this one for sure. You need to restrict anything that prevents you from executing. See, I truthfully don't know how to execute, but I do know how to remove everything in my life that stops me from executing. I put a baby monitor on my Instagram and it shuts me off in 25 minutes. I put parental controls on my phone. I review my screen time to see how my time's being allocated. I only watch things that are going to inspire me or be productive. I'm eliminating everything constantly that is preventing me from executing in my highest form, because my calling is more important than a bottle of wine. My calling is more important than staying up to 4 a.m. for no good reason. My calling is more important than any of those other things. I don't have fear of missing out, because there's no way I can miss out, because I am in the pocket of my calling. And when you're in the pocket, everything that is for you comes to you. You don't have to miss out on anything or have any fear about that, because everything that is for you comes to you when you're in the pocket of your calling. Number 21, you need to train your attention. Now, a lot of people won't meditate because they don't like the word meditate, but maybe you're willing to train your attention, which is basically saying meditate. But if you meditate with the intention to train your attention, because if you don't have a strong attention, do you think you're going to be able to execute? If you can't keep focused on one thing, do you think you can execute? If you don't follow through on your tasks and the work at hand, do you think you can execute? If you get distracted easily and you're forgetful, I don't think you can execute. See, execution is having the focused concentration and attention toward the task at hand, and being able to turn on that focus on that task and turn off everything around you until you get it done. The way I do this is I just make a commitment. I'm getting this done. Nothing else matters in the world in that moment in time when I have made the commitment, I'm getting this job done. So I make a commitment. I'm going to write my training on execution, and there's nothing else that matters. That is all that I do. I don't allow any distractions in during that focused period of time. I've gotten to the point where I can do that because I've trained my attention. Many of you might have seen videos of me doing speed bag. That's attention training. Meditation is attention training. There's a variety of different techniques to train your attention. You can train it on your breathing. You can listen to music and listen to the notes and listen to the instruments to train your attention. But you have to have a technique to train your attention, because everyone else is trying to steal your attention. Facebook, Google, Instagram, TikTok is trying to steal your attention away from your business. It's the greatest theft of attention in the history of humanity. These companies are monetizing your attention. You have to have a defense to that, because there are a million scientists trying to figure out how to take your attention away from your calling so that they can monetize that attention. Number 22, we need to perform the 9 acts of the spiritual entrepreneur daily. Number 23, we need to embrace change, challenge, and crisis as the friends that they are, knowing that they are here to teach you. Today, I had a crisis. For those of you who are in the Prayer Warrior group, one of my dear friends is going through a spiritual attack right now. And he's calling me all hours of the night. He can't sleep. He's in difficult shape. I'm getting on the phone with him. I went to his house and brought him a green juice this morning. I'm dealing with this because I know that this crisis is going to teach me. It's going to teach him. And something good is going to come from this. So I'm leaning into it because I think there's gold in here. I don't know what that is. My ego has some ideas, and I say, oh, I'm not thinking about what good might possibly come from this, other than I know with faith that I'm being called into this moment to be a friend, to help a friend that is in crisis, just as I wish to be helped when I'm going through a dark time. And I know that there's something good that's going to come from it. I embrace it as my friend. I do my job. I ask to be a spiritual leader. A friend of mine's in a spiritual crisis. I'm showing up. Many of us, though, we run from it. We close off. We disconnect. We judge. We gossip. We belittle the people when they're going through a tough time. As spiritual leaders, when a person's going through a tough time is when you get activated in your highest level of calling. And that goes for your team, your family, your friends. Like, it's all practice. And then there's a challenge, there's a crisis, there's a massive change underway. And then it's game time. That's when we show up at our best. That's when we show up in the pocket of our calling and we get the job done that we came here to do. Almost done here, a couple more. 24, we need to lead with our hearts, speak our truth, demand honesty and candor, and put the mission first. When I find myself being a little king, oh, I'm tired. It was a long day. I tell myself, Ryan, that's little king stuff. We're playing the big king game here. The big king or queen is going to complain. That's the little king stuff. That's the lower self stuff. We're here to play the higher self stuff. And I remind myself that I'm playing in the biggest game on the planet. I'm not playing in these small games. And when I find myself playing in a small game, complaining about small stuff, allowing small things to set me back or to drain my energy, I remind myself that I'm playing in a big game because I have a big calling. I have the biggest creator behind me. I'm playing the biggest game on the planet. 25, lead with love. Every problem that I have faced as a spiritual entrepreneur, and I've been doing this now for going on 4 years, 3.5 years. It has all been solved when I've reminded myself how much I love the person I'm in conflict with, when I tell that person I love them, when I speak from my heart, when I show people how much I care. All the problems go away when you lead with love. 26, we need to give all glory to God. Submit, obey. Let the Creator do the creating, and you do the leading. There's a reason why the Creator, God, Elohim, Hashem, whatever your tradition, source, whatever your tradition calls it, there's a reason why we have been created. We have a creator that we get to work with. We are the eyes and ears, the hands and feet on the ground, so to speak. So get your directions from above. Submit and obey, and give all glory to God with every victory, and embrace every challenge. I'm going to give you a few tactics. One of the things that I like to do, I like to reverse engineer everything. I start at the end goal, and then I work backwards. I create a list. If the end goal is to have a product delivered by X, what are all the components that are going to have to go into that? What tasks need to be done by when? Number 2, I use the calendar as the greatest tool of execution. I'm constantly driving to get the event on the calendar. Number 3, I use the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule is if I can do it in 2 minutes, I do it right now. I don't put things on my list that take 2 minutes. If I'm in a meeting and someone says, can you get a hold of so-and-so, the chef for Moon Mountain? I do it right then and there in the meeting. I don't go, oh yeah, sure, take that note, and then have this long list of stuff that I have to do. I get it done very quickly if it takes less than 2 minutes. Number 4, I focus on solving one big problem at a time. I want to get movement in one problem at a time. We've been focused on our sales and marketing engines aggressively. And one of the key metrics on that is this concept called ROAS, which stands for return on ad spend. And we've been focused on this for quite some time, and we're starting to see some beautiful results, and we're getting around a 5 to 6 times return on our ad spend every 20 or so days. I'm still focused on this problem. The team's focused on this problem. I remind the team of the problem. I require KPIs, updates, and metrics, and now I'm scaling with our team, of course, the systems that are going to support the scale of this metric. That was the first problem that I thought we needed to solve, significant problem. And we're focused on that one. And I'm laser focused on this. The next one is work until you're exhausted and then rest. At the end of a working day, you should feel like you put your all into it. You shouldn't be bored, looking at the clock, wasting time on random social media stuff. You are not activated in your calling unless you've given it your all in a day. But you give it your all, you check in with your energy. I've given it my all today. Now it's time to be a mystic by night and go get that rest. You have to know what your all feels like. For those of you who are younger, you need to push your limits to know what your limits are. I equate it to the same as running. If I never tried to run a 5-minute mile, I would have never known what I was capable of doing. Some of you with work though, you're like, I never want to try to run a 5-minute mile. I want to run a 15-minute mile. And I'm here to tell you, you want to try to figure out what your limits are. What is your capacity for output? Push yourself, not over the limit, to the limits, know those limits, and then pull back into your sweet spot where you're highly optimized, where you're able to recharge your energy as you put it out. But you need to know exactly what you're capable of putting out before you can pull back and optimize in your zone, in your sweet spot of input and output. Input are the things that recharge me: food, sunrises, sunsets, meditation, gospel music, Whitney Houston recharges me, like things that recharge me. And then outputs are, the stuff that we got to do that is difficult, the stuff that is emotional, the stuff that grows us and challenges us. Those are the outputs. So we have to get the input and the output ratio correctly, but many people don't know quite what their output capability is. And so you got to test those limits and then pull back and then dial in your input-output ratio to optimize your effectivity. Another tactic is to invest time in training your team weekly. I used to never make time for this. I used to think I'll train my team once I have like 100 team members, or they don't need training. We know each other. We all know what's going on. That is not a wise decision. We need to train our teams every week. We invest an hour each week into what we call a culture call. And we've done this for a while now, well over a year. I don't remember when we got the culture call going. It might be going on 2 years now. And every week we get together. There's a topic, we share, we get an update, we have fun. We will select a book and then read a chapter of the book. Our culture call, to me, is the funnest thing we do as a team. I look forward to the culture call every single week. We're highly a remote workplace. So this is an opportunity for us all to get together, to see each other, to connect, introduce new team members, get to meet new people. In fact, one of the people on this call today shared a powerful testimony last week. It brought her to tears and brought me to tears. Like, this culture call is where we get to speak from the heart, share from the heart, update on the company, learn and grow together. I know many entrepreneurs that don't even have executive meetings, let alone team meetings. Or if you do, you're not doing it effectively to activate them in their calling. So I recommend investing in culture now. Even if you have a 3-person team, start working on culture now. The next tactic I like to do is I review my bad decisions. I do a post-mortem on it. And when I do make a bad decision, which I do all the time, the best decision makers are gonna get it right maybe 70% of the time. So that means out of 100 decisions, 30 of them are the wrong decision. I think about that. If I make 100 decisions a month, 30 of them are not going to be the very best decisions that I could have made. So when I do recognize, and my team will often let me know, that I've made a bad decision, I model responsibility, and I say, yep, made a bad call. And then we unpack the bad call. We just had a team meeting last week. I made a bad call. It resulted in other bad calls, and then we unpacked it. I took primary responsibility because I was the one that initiated this bad call, and other than people took their responsibility, and we grew as a team from it, and we created culture code from it. We created understanding from it. So ultimately the bad call turned into a good thing because we grew as an organization. But a lot of times I see entrepreneurs try to deny responsibility for a bad call, try to avoid responsibility for it, or blame it on other people. It's not my fault, it's not my fault, it's not my fault. In order for you to solve a problem, you have to see and take responsibility for your part in the problem. And as a leader, you're partly responsible for everything that goes on in your organization, whether it be direct or indirect. So if a person does something terrible, you might not be directly involved in that, but you hired the person. So it's underneath your stewardship and your leadership. And so everything under your leadership is your responsibility. The next tactic is demand urgency and due dates. Urgency, even if you don't have a required, this doesn't have to be launched tomorrow, let's say, or tomorrow's too soon. Let's say the project could be launched anytime within the next 6 months. In order to execute at your highest level, you need to work on that project with urgency, so that way you can move on to the next project. You don't want never-ending projects. You want every project to be treated with urgency, because we get this done, we move on to the next one. So sometimes you have to manufacture that urgency. And by manufacturing that urgency, I mean setting a due date that's going to require people to stretch. Demanding due dates. When people give you soft due dates, or when people, they call it sandbag, they say, oh, I'll be able to get that done in 60 days. You have to challenge them and say, I'd like to get that done in 6 days, not 60. Because your job is to see them execute at their highest ability. And if you don't have enough friction in that execution, you'll never meet your highest self and your highest ability to execute. So deadlines with urgency behind them create the friction necessary for you to find out who you really are and for you to sharpen your skills of execution. There's only 2 more tactics. Next is to drive action. If I'm in a meeting, my team will tell you this, and someone says, I have an idea. Let's have balloons at the next event. I'm like, I love balloons. Everybody's like, balloons, we love balloons. Balloons are beautiful. Who doesn't like balloons at events, right? And I'm the guy saying, who's buying the balloons? Who's gonna blow them up? I'm not the one that's gonna blow them up. Who's got the action? Who's got the responsibility? Great idea, approved. Who's got the action? Now let's move on. I'm driving toward action 100% of the time. I'm listening for opportunities to get people to take action and take responsibility for their action. Apple uses this concept called the DRP, which stands for Direct Responsible Party. Every action has a person that is directly responsible for the outcome of that action. So I'm driving action. At the end of our meetings, there are a long list of actions. People know that if they're going to volunteer an idea, they better be willing to volunteer the action to back up that idea. So they know, like, they're like, oh, we should do this. They're like, and I'll be the one doing that, and I'll have that done by this time in this place. Now, we're not perfect by any means. We are perfecting the system of spiritual entrepreneurship, but driving action is key. When you walk out of a meeting, there should be a list of action items that the team has agreed to. And the last one is, and this is a very secret, top secret tactic that I utilize that you can't tell anybody, okay? This is worth the price of admission. It's very sneaky. You might even question how spiritual this tactic is after you hear it. One of the things that I do tactically is I find benchmarks from industries and companies and teams that are performing at a high level. I often find them from competitors, and I do that by interviewing competitive company team members. I do homework and research to determine those benchmarks. Some might call this competitive intelligence or industry intelligence, but I will actually have meetings with people from very large, very big, formidable competitors, and I'll talk to their ex-team members, their ex-employees, their investors. I'll talk to their current team members, their current employees. I'll book meetings with them just to learn what they're up to understand how they're executing, to see if I can identify any flaws in their execution so that I can take those benchmarks back, so I can refine our execution practices, so I can increase our standards, and so I can increase the level of execution and productivity within our company. When I learn each day, I'm often studying entrepreneurs, listening for how they execute, studying their thought process, hearing the way they describe their work product, their working environment. I'm looking at videos of their corporate headquarters and looking at how they've productized their buildings. I'm inspecting everything that I possibly can. I'm going through their funnels. I'm looking at their books. I'm studying what they're doing and I'm watching them speak, but I'm not listening to the words. I'm studying, why did they choose that word? Why did they choose to share that piece of information? Why did they find that as a valuable thing to share? I'm trying to go layers upon layers upon layers deeper than the surface so that I can improve my capacity to execute. Because when we have a calling, it is our duty to get better, more grounded, deeper rooted in the purpose of that calling every day. And if there's any source of inspiration or information that'll help me do that, then I'm doing it. I'm taking the meeting. I'm gonna spend the time. I'm gonna go to an experience. I'm gonna book the call. I'm gonna do whatever it takes so that way I can become more efficient and more effective in my calling. So I hope you've learned about execution at the calling level. I hope this was informative to you, and I hope that you've taken some diligent notes and that you have some questions. I'm Ryan Blair. I've done over $1 billion in exits, $2 billion in sales, and I help founders like you grow, scale, turn around, and exit their businesses. If you're running an 8-figure business and you want to take it to 9, or you're running a 9-figure business and you want to take it to 10, I'll give you an hour of my time to discuss strategy and tactics necessary for you to do that. I have actually done that. I know what it takes to build and scale a business. I know the unique problem sets that you face. I know the unique challenges. I know the problems that you're up against, and I'm happy to give you an hour of my time to build a relationship with you to see if we could possibly work together. If you're interested, click on the link, find a time on my calendar, and we'll spend an hour together talking about strategy and tactics for you to grow, scale, or sell your business.